Okay, well, welcome, everybody. This is the regular meeting of the Housing Committee for February 5th, 2025. I am Kathy Hunter, and I will be chairing tonight's meeting. And tonight, we are joined by our Housing Committee members, Warner Marshall, Chris Dickerson, Donovan Lofters, Jim Graham, Louis Schaefer, Mary Dean, First Selectman Mika Cardozo, and our town planner, Justin LaFountain.
Here is a liaison for the Board of Finance.
Okay. And with that, we do have a quorum,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Six.
All right, so the first item on our agenda is public comment, and I do see we have some people here from public comment. So I'm just going to give some housekeeping rules on this. Our public comment is for the purpose of listening to the comments from the public on the affordable housing plan and or the efforts of the Housing Committee. Anyone who wishes to make public comment will have up to 3 minutes for their brief statements into the record. I just want to note that our committee will not be answering any questions you may raise, but your public statements and any written comments will become part of the public record for our consideration. I do ask that members of the public please keep your comments brief and focused on the town's affordable housing plan and or the work of the Housing Committee. And try to avoid unreasonable repetition so we can hear all of your concerns and that you and other residents may have. So at this point, do we have anybody here for public comment?
So do you want me to sign the list as well as the list that was handed out that you have there?
You could just sign in there.
Okay.
Our lives and everybody's eating, that's a lot easier.
So, okay, Amy Morello, 184 Rimmon Road. I come before you once again to urge a course correction. The 2022 housing plan lacks substantive input from residents when it was released in the spring of that year and contains substantive misstatements of fact and law as critiqued and detailed by me and others in previous appearances before your committee and the Board of Selectmen. Stuck so far with a flawed housing plan, which the minimal edits proposed last month would not correct, many of us hoped that our town would do a better job looking at housing in the process of crafting a new POCD. Last summer, as part of the POCD review, the town invested in a robust town-wide survey revealing, in general terms, residents' priorities for our town's future. As summarized by POCD consultant SLR, the summer 2024 community survey results show, and I quote, "Respondents generally feel that there is an appropriate mix of housing types in the community, but would like to see more small single-family homes, condominiums, and mixed-use options. Participants also note a need for more affordable housing. Nearly 60% stated that Woodbridge's housing stock is not accessible and affordable to people of different ages and lifestyles, and would like to see more affordable single-family structure options in the community." Another portion of the survey report makes clear that our schools and economic development are the residents' top priorities for the next 10 years. In contrast, out of 11 possibilities, affordable housing, quote unquote, ranks 8th, and housing stock, quote unquote, ranks 10th. Notably, SLR has stated that its community survey results for the POCD update are robust and reliable. So what does this survey tell us? It tells us that residents support more affordable housing and have specific ideas about what types of housing they favor, notably not large apartment buildings. It shows that in general, more housing stock is not a priority, but the residents are amenable specifically to more affordable housing with a focus on single-family structures. Sadly, the Housing Committee's advocacy is completely out of touch with what residents want and has failed to make any effort to achieve the type of affordable housing that residents do want. Instead, this committee continues to rely on an outdated, deeply flawed plan and personal preferences. Please start listening to your fellow residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Kathy Wick, 181 Rimmon Road. Facts matter. Getting basic, verifiable facts right lends credibility to any argument. The reverse, of course, is also true. If basic, verifiable facts in an argument are wrong, the argument lacks credibility. If the factual assumptions that underlie any argument are proven to be false, the argument collapses. Amy and I presented a 5-page critique of the Affordable Housing Plan in September of 2023, outlining myriad factual errors in the plan that still, nearly 18 months later, have not been corrected, even though the selectmen directly requested corrections last June and again a month ago. I'm going to mention the simplest, most obvious error in the plan and then talk about why this committee's stubborn refusal to correct its errors is so dangerous and has contributed to the 4-story, 96-unit horror proposed for 804 Fountain Street. Let's start with a quiz. True or false? The population of Woodbridge has been increasing over the past decade. Anyone?
True.
True. Right. Yet, the Affordable Housing Plan says, incorrectly, that the population of Woodbridge has been decreasing over the past decade. There is no excuse for getting such a simple fact wrong. You can get the correct information in about 30 seconds on the U.S. Census Bureau website. Unfortunately, the Affordable Housing Plan, instead of using reliable sources, repeatedly misuses something called the American Community Survey, which is not meant to provide data on individual communities and therefore is frequently inaccurate, such as in its incorrect assertion that Woodbridge is declining in population. Let's get back to the quiz. True or false? Accuracy in basic facts is important in official town documents. Anyone? Thank you. True or false? The chair of the Housing Committee believes that accuracy in basic facts is important in official town documents. Unfortunately, the answer to that question is false. At the January 8th meeting of this committee, just last month, Ms. Hunter complained bitterly that the selectmen had asked her to correct her errors and said that getting basic facts about the town wrong in the Affordable Housing Plan is immaterial. I quote. I'm going to explain why this sloppy approach to facts has been so damaging. The application to build a 96-unit, 4-story apartment building on Fountain Street includes what is called a statement of use. This statement is the justification for the project, the reasons why the applicant believes that the application should be approved. The Fountain Street developer's statement of use quotes directly from the Affordable Housing Plan, stating that the plan, quote, makes key findings related to the need for affordable housing in Woodbridge. These so-called key findings include, quote, over the past decade, Woodbridge has seen population decreases and is projected to continue to experience population decreases over the next 2 decades. As we just established, this statement is false. In Woodbridge, approximately 66% of renters and 27% of homeowners are considered cost burden, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on housing. This assertion is based on the American
Kathy, can
Community
you,
Survey.
wrap this up, please?
Okay, which refers to large national trends. There was no way to know whether it is in fact true or false without a very different kind of study. Keeping current residents in town while attracting new residents would seem a priority in terms of maintaining the vitality of the community, as well as ameliorating the potential increased proportional tax burden associated with a declining population. This is a third quote from the statement of use by the Fountain Street developer. This statement is not applicable. It's not applicable to Woodbridge, since we do not, in fact, have a declining population. And then the final statement in the statement of use refers to the number of school children that are likely to come in with new construction. And it is basically irrelevant to Woodbridge because it refers to state and national averages and not specifically to Woodbridge. Woodbridge is a unicorn. It has a unique location, school quality as good or better than Fairfield County, and relatively low home prices that makes the demographic of people moving into this town quite different from other towns.
Relatively low home prices?
Compared to
evaluation?
Fairfield County, yes.
Thank you.
Much lower.
Thank you.
Enrollment actually is up 15% in Woodbridge, and it's at a 10-year low statewide, falling by 8% in the past decade. When Amy and I presented our listing of the errors in the housing plan, we did so because we were concerned that those errors, if not corrected promptly, would be perpetuated in other town policies. Unfortunately, we were correct.
And please, if everybody could try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. We do have lots on the agenda tonight.
My name is Dr. Philip Arnold. I live at 131 Beecher Road. I've been a resident of this town since 1941. I live in the house I was born in. I'm a person who's gone through the school system here, elementary school, Amity High School, Yale University. I was a physician for many years. My dad was a physician here. He was the medical examiner for the town and ran a private practice for a while. I want to support exactly what Amy Morella and Kathy Wicks said about the situation. We were not, as a resident, I was not informed about any of these things and anything that I could find. And I wish that there'd been better promulgation of the facts about this situation to us ahead of time so that we could have responded more fully. I support what Kathy and Amy said, and I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here for public comment? If you could just please sign in. Can you just please sign your name?
My name's Julie Mason. I'm co-owner of 815 Fountain Street. I'm currently living with my daughter at 54 Cooper Place, which is the Westgate Townhomes. They are on Fountain Street, east of the proposed site of these apartments. I just have a casual comment on the traffic. Trying to get out onto Fountain Street as things currently stand is almost impossible. I have to rely on someone out of the kindness of their heart to let me get onto the street. If we had 100 or 200 more cars coming out of this apartment complex onto Fountain Street, which is a simple 2-lane road, everyone is going to suffer. The people in the apartments and everyone else all the way down the road, all the way down into New Haven. So I don't think the road can handle the traffic for this new apartment complex.
I just want to remind folks that this is the Housing Committee, we're not the Planning and Zoning Committee. You'll have your opportunity to talk about that on March 6th, I believe. March 3rd, I believe. So if you could focus your comments to the Housing Committee or the Affordable Housing Plan.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Mason. I'm Julie's husband. I live at 815 Fountain Street. I concur with all that I've heard prior to this. I will say that less than a week ago, I knew nothing about this apartment building. The information that has come to me with respect to how this was approved suggests that it was done by design surreptitiously, with the express purpose of keeping the residents of the town from knowing. That being the case, I would suggest that the process proceeded in bad faith. I find it, well, we moved here 3 years ago. I'd practiced environmental law in California for 33 years before getting here. I find it curious that you won't answer any questions. So the only thing I would say is, the questions that I would have, and they will eventually be answered, are, is there an environmental impact report or its equivalent that has been prepared in respect of this project? Has a traffic study done in respect of this project? And with respect to your not answering questions, if it does come to it, and when the full picture is known regarding this, you don't want it to be the subject of an injunctive relief action, because then all of you will be answering questions under oath. Okay? Thanks very much.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead. Sure.
I just wanted to note that the comments here, while we appreciate hearing them, have really nothing to do with this committee. We did not approve Fountain Street. We did not vote on it. nothing that we did on it.
But your
If I-
recommendation to the town is for 1,500 new units of housing.
Okay,
If
we're
I-
not.
That's not exactly
comment,
correct.
just,
All right,
just
we're not going to be, we want to hear everybody's comments, so we're not going to be engaging in dialogue. So if people could just come up and we'll listen to your comments and we'll take them into consideration. I don't know if,
No, I just wanted to reiterate, just to clarify, the project has not been, there is no project. There is an application for a project that will be heard with the public hearing scheduled for March 3rd to be heard, at which point in time, it would be appropriate for all the comments related to this to be made. I also just, and that's specific to the Fountain Street project. So you will have an opportunity. There has been nothing done. And some of what you've commented in terms of being done, like studies, traffic, things of that nature, are all part of the process that will happen. So that none of that has happened at this point in time because it is simply an application. So just to clarify, so if you're coming up to make some comments, you understand what the particulars are.
I think it is the functional equivalent of answering the question.
So.
Thank you.
And by all means, as first selectman, please, I've got a lot of information, and I'm happy to speak with anybody who would like to speak to me about it.
Michael Broderick, 5 Old Still, 9 Dillon, and 1746 Litchfield Turnpike. The reason that I say that is that owning 3 properties in town, I pay a lot of taxes to the town. And I don't mind it. I have no children, so I don't even utilize our wonderful school system. But being a veterinarian and a community member that cares a lot about the town, I think that's part of my responsibility. But what I don't appreciate is this housing committee putting such an undue tax burden on the residents of the town. All of our commissions, I was a former member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I always thought the commissions were here to represent the town, all of our taxpayers, all of our residents, as your first priority, not representing outside forces, representing what people in this town see and what they want for this town on the Housing Committee. And I don't see anybody clamoring for the amount of affordable units that your commission is proposing. And I find it deleterious to our quality of life, because if we have projects like this one, which your commission seems to endorse, built, we will have to build an addition to Beecher School. We'll have to have more fire equipment that we don't possess to service 4-story buildings. And, towns like Woodbridge around the state don't generally, semi-rural suburbs, don't generally build giant buildings like this. If you look at how affordable housing has been addressed in other towns similar to Woodbridge, it's never like this. And they don't have a housing committee putting their residents' interests. Who knows where you're putting our interests? They're not our interests. And you should be representing our interests as our commission. And I have no idea where this stuff is coming from. The state suggestions are merely suggestions. Most towns in Connecticut do not comply with the 10% affordable housing. I think there's only 32 towns that actually have 10% affordable housing. So that means the vast majority of the towns like Woodbridge in Connecticut don't. And I don't think they have commissions like yours that is doing this very negative action to our town residents. And I really resent that we have to come out in a commission that should be representing our interests, and I'm looking especially at our chairman, because I heard her speak incorrectly with misstatements all over the place, as Amy and Kathy Wick already mentioned, and not even telling the public the truth.
Good evening, Donald Salato, 3 Knollwood Road. I assume that the members of this group are earnest and well-intentioned. I'm speaking more to the members of the group and not the chair. How many more meetings does this committee have to have? How many more meetings involving this committee need to take place where the committee, and particularly the chair, are reminded of the misleading, misquotations, incorrect information on facts, on purported facts, which are easily refuted, and which have been refuted, I don't know, 4 or 5 times now over the last almost 2 years. How many times are members of this committee going to let themselves be bamboozled by such poor leadership and such erroneous and targeted inclinations by the chair? How many times has the first selectman gently admonished, as his kind ways always indicate, admonished the chair to get her facts straight? And here we are again, and she still doesn't know which way is right and what's up or down. It's time to stop. I think, ma'am, you ought to leave.
Thank you. Anybody else here for public comment?
Good evening. My name is Sally Connolly, and I live at 249 Newton Road, and I'm glad we're all having the opportunity to express our opinions. I come from a decidedly different point of view. I am grateful that this housing committee is looking at providing more affordable housing for Woodbridge. I think we're an extraordinary community. I've been here for 30 years, and I think we have so much to share with our neighbors in the surrounding area, whether it's New Haven, Milford, Bethany, whatever. I believe that we can absorb more affordable housing and outreach to a greater community and still keep this wonderful place that we have of beautiful places, concerned citizens who are active like everyone here. And I thank the committee for all that it's doing. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Jonathan Jacko Jones, 38 Deer Run Road, Woodbridge. I'm going to redirect the focus back to against the proposed project of Fountain Street. Me and my wife, we moved here 2.5 years ago for the sole purpose of the education system, the beautiful nature, just the whole culture of the town. And I strongly believe that the whole proposed project is going to cause a lot of different problems. I'm not going to go down the road of all the different things that have already been discussed, but one thing that comes to mind is the environmental impact. That carves right alongside the Mara Parkway, so all those trees coming down, that's just going to create so much worse air quality. That's just going to seep right through. We already know global warming is an issue right now, and that can just make it worse, and it's going to force different vegetation, different wildlife out of the area. And I think that's one of the biggest draws to Woodbridge is the environmental well-being that we all have here. And last focus is I have 2 young daughters in the Beecher Road school system, and that was one of the reasons why we also came here. And our oldest daughter, she had to move to a different classroom because the first grade classroom was so overpacked because the school only has a certain capacity that they had to bring in a new teacher. It was a little disruptive, and a lot of people were up in arms about it. And you've drawn these big projects, this big project on Fountain Street, it's going to draw in so many more people, so many more students. And I don't know if that school can hold that capacity. And, they had a hard time fixing the roof and other budget problems, so you add this onto that. I don't know where all the students are going to go, but I think it's going to cause a problem, and definitely against it. So, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our concerns. My name is Marissa Jacko-Jones. I'm a resident of 38 Deer Run Road. I'm writing in response to the proposed development of 804 Fountain Street. While I did hear that you've commented that this may not be the appropriate forum, I think it's inextricably linked to the affordable housing plan. So I am still going to vocalize my concerns, and I will reiterate them on March 3rd. I am expressing my vehement opposition to this proposal, citing the following concerns as they pertain to quality of life, environmental impact, and the education system. My husband and I moved to this bucolic town for the open space, esteemed educational system, and for the health and welfare of our growing family. Open space is an essential component of a healthy ecosystem and supports biodiversity. As avid birders and nature lovers, we are gravely concerned about preserving the sanctity of the natural environment, especially given the rapidly worsening climate change we are all experiencing. Along with the aforementioned environmental problems, there is concern about air quality due to increased traffic, unsightly visualization of a flat roof with equipment atop it, noise and light pollution, as well as intrusion and pollution of the adjacent bodies of water. I implore you to consider how you would feel if such a proposal was brought for approval in your neighborhood. As far as the impact on the education system, I would like you to consider where up to 96 children will be placed in an education system already beyond its capacity. The repairs of the leaking roof of Beecher Road School were delayed until the summer of 2024. I will also impart my personal experience in the beginning of the 2024-2025 academic year, which can only be described as shock and dismay when I entered our daughter's first grade classroom open house. The room was overcrowded with an unacceptable pupil to faculty ratio of 23-1. We petitioned the Woodbridge Board of Education to hire a new instructor, which was granted, thereby reducing the ratio to 18-1. However, is this the new precedent? Am I to believe one of the very reasons we were compelled to relocate here is now no longer salient? This proposal is a slippery slope which will only set a precedent fraught with deleterious consequences, such as more clearing of land, destruction, overpopulation, and environmental upset. In fact, I will reference the first longitudinal clinical trial to assess the correlation between well-being and nature using serum inflammatory markers, namely the C-reactive protein blood marker associated with cardiovascular disease, diabetes, as well as certain malignancies conducted by Dr. Aruni Bagnatar. The results suggested adding trees to a neighborhood may reduce the risk of fatal disease, as evidenced by lower CRP levels with increased tree planting. As Dr. Bill Frist states, nature is essential infrastructure too often taken for granted. But now we know it can make us healthier. Our local, state, and federal budgets need to reflect the reality that our environment and the nature around us affect our health in tangible, economically beneficial ways. We now have a proven reason to advocate for increasing trees and green spaces as a key strategy to improve individual and community health, while also making our cities cooler, more beautiful, and more welcoming places to live in and raise our families. In conclusion, I'm voicing my strong opposition to this proposal on behalf of myself, my family, and those who are unable to advocate. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here for public comment?
Hi, I'm David Cantor. I live at 86 Forest Glen Drive. First, I want to thank the committee members for the efforts they make. I'm late to this party. I've been living here for almost 25 years, but I haven't been involved in the town discussions to the degree I think I should now be involved in them. But I'm not coming at this from a partisan background. From my point of view, I see a couple of things. One is that Woodbridge had a long history of doing virtually nothing about creating a lot of plans, whether it was economic development, affordable housing, even a lot of things related to the school system. We seem to be more reactive than proactive, and so now we've got some pressure on us from a number of different fronts, not the least of which we should also be trying to do what's right. So I'm sympathetic to this committee and to others in town government and on committees that you're sort of being handed a portfolio and not a lot has happened. The part that does bother me, though, is that we're never going to get everybody to agree. Obviously, you can hear it in this room. We've got people on diametrically opposed sides, and I would wager you're never going to get, 80, 90% agreement. But I do think that with this kind of a policy, after so little for so long, it's all the more incumbent on you guys to slow the process down a little bit and to look for some more town consensus, because I think you can hear tonight, I'm sure you hear it when you bump into somebody at Stop and Shop, when you see someone at JCC, when you're talking on the phone. There's a lot of divisiveness here, and I think there's been a lack of good, clear communication. I'm not clear that we have fact sets that we all agree on. That's not rocket science. This is not AI level stuff. We should be able to get there on this stuff. So I would just encourage the first selectman to show some real leadership, but more than anything, to get some publicity out there, to get some first principles out there, and to get people talking. So while we're not all going to agree, we can at least get some consensus and not, we see what goes on nationally and internationally. Do we really need to be that riven in a little town of less than 10,000 people? I don't think we need that. We can get to, yes, we need more affordable housing. No, we don't want to put up crown towers in the center of Woodbridge. And somewhere between those 2 points, I think there could be some consensus. So thank you for listening to me. I hope to start participating more, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else here for public comment? Do we have anybody else here for public comment? Okay.
Good evening, I'm Robert Adams, 25 Pumpkin Patch Road. I just wanted to say, as far as housing goes, I would prefer if Woodbridge doesn't look like Shelton or Milford 10 years from now. They've been built up a lot. They were rural communities at one point. Thank you. Oh. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody else here for public comment?
Hi, Nancy Silverstein, 29 Fairgrounds Road. I was not prepared to speak tonight, but felt compelled to do so. I, too, was so disappointed that I felt blindsided by finding out about the proposed, by who we don't know, the proposed project on Fountain Street. It clearly, I don't think, in my view, I'm sorry? Oh, I have a hearing problem. I can't talk. I do not believe it reflects the views of the majority of the town. I grew up in a town in Westchester that started out as a lovely, bucolic neighborhood town that was forced to be involved in social engineering such as this, and it basically was the demise of the town. So I do thank the committee for their efforts, but I personally oppose such changes.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else here for public comment? Do we have anybody else here for public comment?
Good evening. I didn't know about this until last week. My name's Ted Cozio, live on 2 Shepherd Road. I just would like to say I would wish that the representatives in this town would represent the wishes of the residents. That's all I have to say.
Do we have anybody else here for public comment? Okay. Oh, I don't really sign it. I'm sorry, did the last participant, did you sign in? I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leslie Lyons. I live at 941 Greenway Road. Mine's a kind of rhetorical question, so you don't have to answer, but my concern is, and this is something nobody, of course, mentioned, but what might be the effects of the abominable current administration, whatever they are in the White House, of dismantling DEI. And I'm wondering if that's going to affect any of the decisions that are made coming forward. I believe there is an affiliation connection to some degree, and there should be. And I'm just wondering if anybody is going forward has considered that possibility, that the effects of its demise somehow might be in consideration as well. And I'm on your side.
Thank you.
And thank
you. Is there anybody else here for public comment? Is there anybody else here for public comment? We have to say this 3 times. Is there anybody else here for public comment? Okay. With that, I'll make a motion to close public comment. Can I have a second?
Second.
Who's second?
I'll second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All right.
Kathy, can I make one comment?
Sure.
Just wanted you folks to know, since you're here, on the 27th of this month, we're planning a session where we'll have a community conversation where we can talk both ways. At the commission meetings, as you know, most of our committees and commissions and boards, we only have public comment one way. But the 27th of this month is planned. Please pay attention to the website. There'll be information on our website on it, and because it's February, we never know what the weather's going to do, so that way we know what will happen. But that will be an opportunity, and there'll be some subject matter experts here to provide some information and some facts. Again, it won't be specific to the development. That's in March. That's an application, so we really can't talk to that too much. We can tell you what we know in terms of what's public and what's fact, but we can answer some questions in regard to some of the other things that I've heard today and some general questions that you might have. So, probably about 6 to 8. That's what it is. But again, no, it'll likely be in the gym. And but again, please pay attention to the information will be on our website. I'm sorry, I didn't even. Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the housing chair report. I did want to acknowledge that with this flyer that did go out in folks' mailboxes. It really highlights our need to, our charge for education, for educating residents on housing. There is lots of misstatements in that flyer, and, you know, personally, I don't think this kind of rhetoric represents who we are in town. I know it is possible for us to have different opinions on the future of Woodbridge, but we should be engaging in a respectful, fact-based discussion. So before I go any further, I really did want to open this up to our housing committee members. You know, I know probably you all received the flyer. If you want to, you know, make some comments as to what your thoughts are and how we should proceed from here.
I would, Kathy.
Okay.
You know, I feel very bad for Kathy. I haven't always agreed with Kathy on everything. Frequently we agree, but I have questioned her at times. But there's one thing I could always speak to, her sincerity and her knowledge of the subject. And I feel very bad that she's had to take this kind of abuse and insults. And thank you, Kathy, for all you do.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments on the flyer? Or?
I have the flyer if you'd like to look at it.
Oh, I think people have seen it.
Yes. As you said, I'd just like to reiterate what you said. When I read the flyer, it just reinforced for me, I'm sure I speak for everybody on the committee, the need for more public education about these issues and the need for more opportunities for people to ask questions and get answers from people who are well informed. It's not an easy subject. It can be complicated. The answers can be not as straightforward as some people would like to have. Yes, no, this number, that number. And that's why it's so important to have dialogue and more community conversation opportunities are clearly indicated. If we were to sit here and just take apart every piece of rhetoric that it can be debated, I mean, it would not serve us or anybody very well in terms of the way we use our time. Better that we should get back to work on housing. That's my opinion.
I'll pitch in a little bit. I agree with you, Mary. I think we have to do a better job of educating folks. I mean, I was struck by things that were... Okay, well, I'll get closer. How's that? Better? Good. I mean, I'll just take one example of something that it was... I mean, I thought it is disingenuous in the extreme. But, for example, there was one of the comments on the flyer was that the recommendation would be to lower the threshold for affordable housing from like 20% to 12%. I think that's what it said. And then there was a parenthetical, I believe it said, well, that would actually result in less affordable housing. Well, I mean, either that was really misinformed or really malign, because the point of that, and not that we had anything to do with it, but the point of that was to make it possible for developers to come in and actually build more affordable housing. If they had to make 1 out of every 7 units affordable, it was easier for them to fund the transaction than it would be if it was 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 6. So when I saw that, I mean, I just think, like, oh boy, we do need to do a better job. Although I also make for the possibility that no matter what anybody does, there's always going to be, you know, people who have different views. And, you know, and there's nothing we can do about it. I don't think we're ever going to get, David, we're ever going to get to 80 or 90% on stuff, but we've got to try. And there are pressures, too. I mean, you know, we have an active lawsuit that we've got to deal with. One of the concerns that this committee has in mind is that, you know, if we don't figure out a way to become more compliant, someone else will impose it on us, and I don't think that that's the result that we all want to see. Because believe me, something that we do that we agree on or at least can live with is going to be better than something that's imposed on us by outsiders. And don't kid yourself. Don't think that that can't happen. So, Mary, I'm with you. I think we've got to get out and do a little better job, but we also have to recognize that there will be, slings and arrows. Yeah.
If we make sure that the data in the affordable housing plan is spot on and incontrovertible, it's very difficult for people to come in and attack an entity. But when the information in that report is not accurate, or it's misleading, or it's old, or it's slanted, you're opening yourselves up. We're all opening ourselves up to attack. So I think we need to really focus on making sure that that information is accurate as it possibly can be. And it's not. And I'm the newest person on this committee, and I spent a lot of time reading this document and a lot of fact checking. And it's really, it needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of work. And I think we need to get down to working on it. We spend a lot of time talking about a lot of things at this meeting, but if we don't have this basis down, we're wasting time and wasting breath.
There's, Chris, too, I think one of the things we have to be a little bit careful about, I think you're right about that, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but a lot of the projections, for example, they're projections. 20 years from now what the population is going to be and why. I mean, those are things that I think we can't really get a good handle.
It was interesting that someone brought up the population thing, because that was one of the things I looked at. Because on the town website, what's the population on the town website?
92?
96 or 97, something.
No,
92. Another place was 97, then it's 9,000. It's all over the place. But one thing we do know is what the population of the town was in 2011. And it's not what's in our report, okay, which was issued in 2022. So if we're not getting actual past data correct, how can anybody trust what we're projecting going forward? If we can't get the data correct for the past 10 years, why would anybody believe what we're projecting the next 10 years?
I wasn't going to argue about what we're projecting. Some of the times, what are the things that we're putting in there are things that we're getting that are projections from somebody else.
Yes.
We're not making them,
Well,
and we don't have the ability to make some of them.
But we have the responsibility to at least check and make sure we know where that information came from and is it reliable.
Fair enough.
We can at least do that.
Okay, fair enough.
And that's a lot of work. That is a lot of work to do that. But I think it's important to do it.
Well, that certainly is on our agenda, and we're starting to work on that. We had talked about doing an update of our affordable housing plan since it is at the midpoint. I just want to and that's another agenda item, but I just want to go through my chair report. Just a couple more items. I did want to just call out a couple things, and Jim, you alluded to it, to point out, I mean, just a couple, just many misstatements, but the idea that the planning and zoning reduced the affordability requirements so that the developers can make a profit, it's just, so wrong in so many ways. I think folks don't realize that this major housing zoning change was made in 2021. This was a change we made in June 2021, which as a result of the Open Communities Alliance application to planning and zoning, which the commission accepted with modifications, we we created opportunity housing zoning, which allowed for multi-housing in areas that are served by public water and public sewer that are not in the public water supply watershed. And so that regulation speaks to having 15 units per acre, and with a 20% requirement for affordability that was bifurcated between 60% AMI and 80% AMI. What this zoning change did was really just change the bulk requirements of that zoning change that was made back in 2021, increasing the number of units by 3, increasing the stories by 1.5, increasing the impervious cover by like 7.5%. That was the changes. And the affordability part was still, would be 20%, but it would be targeted at 80% AMI, and if you were bifurcating between the 60% and 80%, then it would be 12%. And that was as a result of the fact we have this regulations on the books since 2021 that result in absolutely zero affordable housing developments. So the commission was compelled to tweak that regulation in order to promote more housing, affordable housing, multifamily housing, which is a requirement of the zoning under the state's Zoning Enabling Act. This is a requirement that they have to do. And so they tweaked it in order to promote that. So that's, and I could speak to, a couple other, I can't speak to all of them because there's so much, but I guess the most blatant one was the 1,000 new market rate homes and 500 new affordable homes in the town. They did omit one very important piece of that equation, and that was over a 20-year time frame. A 20-year time frame. So that represents like a 2% growth every year. It results in, and we calculated that in order for us to assure that we get a moratorium every 4 years, so we wouldn't be subjected to the 8-30G. So it was pretty strategic the way we came up with those numbers. And these were just not numbers that were set in, these were recommendations into a POCD process that was still going to be vetted, and whether or not they accepted those numbers, that was not something that was written in stone. And how it got out there in this fashion, in this way, just misrepresented it, in order to have this scare tactic, in order to make everybody come out and fight this, it's not who we are as a town. And And again, I think everybody's right. We have to just do more education, and this committee is really going to have to focus on things that are fact-based, so people understand what the facts are and understand, what we need to do as a town to move this town forward with our obligation for housing.
I wanted to just add to that. It was an aspirational figure that we put there. There were those, myself included, and another member, who questioned going that high because we didn't think it would go through. But we put it down because it was aspirational, and we knew it was going to be vetted by others. The other point I can't keep stressing, and it just keeps baffling me, we're coming under attack and questioning for what happened at Fountain Street. We did not vote on that. We did not talk about it. We did not consider it. This wasn't, we may have feelings about it, but we have feelings as regular citizens. We had nothing to do with that decision. And the other thing, I guess somebody mentioned, we're never going to have 10% here. Nobody does. I hate to say this, we don't have 10%. And if I wanted to follow in the footsteps of one of the speakers tonight, I could ask the group, do you know what the percentage is in Woodbridge? But I'll tell you, it's just a fraction over 1%. And that's why we're here.
I'm sorry, could you just clarify what is it that you're referring to? 1% is what?
We're talking about the amount of affordable housing in the town of Woodbridge. And our figure is slightly above 1%.
All right.
1.15, I believe.
Any more comments on this? We need to move on and get to the work we need to do. I just also want to report that, the POCD update, we did have a meeting with SLR tonight, and, my sense was, and Justin, you could jump in here, was that he was, appreciative of all the recommendations, and he thought all the recommendations were pretty spot on, and, that things would be, tweaked, but he felt that what we had presented was, you know, good action items to be considered for the POCD. And Justin, I don't know if you want to add anything onto that?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that statement. Basically, the next step is that it will get referred back to the TPZ. It's the TPZ's document at the end of the day, so they will review it, you know, see if they have any tweaks, and then it'll go through a public hearing process, and, you know, it's a few months in the making at this point. But, yeah, I would agree with what you said.
Right. So he did say that there would be some policy and action statements that would come out probably by the end of the month. So, you know, as soon as I get any information, I will send that on to the committee. And the last thing is just the, you know, TAC update. And just to highlight the WCC, they did change that. That always stood for Woodbridge Country Club. It's now called Woodbridge Community Collaboration. There was a community meeting on January 29th, and it was I thought it was a pretty good session. They did have a lot of, you know, displays that kind of showed the POCD, the Woodbridge Country Club process, and people got to comment on different areas. I can report there was quite a many dots on affordable housing, so that was pretty encouraging. But it was, you know, it was a good session, I think, to just kind of read up on what was going on with the master planning and to ask questions to the consultants. And, you know, it was I thought a pretty good event. I don't know if anybody else was there for any comments. Okay. I don't know, Mika, if you want to speak to it.
I spent most of the night talking about the Fountain Street, so I really didn't get to. So it was an opportunity for me to talk to folks about what was happening on Fountain Street. So I you know, it was a good opportunity. But overall, it was very well attended. They estimate about 150 to 200 people came through, and it was. What struck me is that it was just a positive. You know, there were people who felt differently, and you can tell by what they were putting up on the boards. But it was very positive, congenial, collegiate. You know, it was just discussions were happening. As I said, I had plenty of discussions about other topics, and they were just that. They were discussions, sharing of information, and sharing of ideas and opinions. It was what you would want, and what I think reflects what this town is about.
Yeah.
So it was a positive thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And so we did have another planned site walk for the Woodbridge Country Club that was supposed to be on Monday, but again, the weather. Though I kind of was hoping to go because I put a couple of sleds in my trunk, and I was hoping to try out the great you know, sled hill, but that didn't happen. So I think they are rescheduling that. So I'll report back probably in March on that. And so that is, and just one other item I just wanted to bring up for the committee is when I was just listening to a lot of public comment about our committee from the Board of Selectmen's meeting, they branded us as strictly an advocacy committee. And just to state for the record, we're not an advocacy committee. We are a planning committee, practitioner committee, but we are here to plan and educate the community on housing, affordable housing, and really there's very much a planning aspect to what we're doing in trying to identify sites and identify where we would want to do the housing, identify what zoning regulations would be needed for the housing, and that is not an advocacy role, that's a planning role. I mean, that is why lots of housing committees in the state are under planning and zoning, because that's the role it takes. So I just wanted to state for the record that we are not an advocacy committee. We're not up at the legislative office building, testifying for anything. We're here to do the work to promote housing.
Kathy, if I could, before you move on to your next topic, only because I don't know that the other areas of your agenda are specific, but a couple of things. I did want to very much thank the committee, thank you and the committee for the work that you are doing. I do want to also make sure publicly let folks know that from my perspective, I made a decision that we would not update the housing plan until such time as it coincided with the POCD, so that we can do both together, since there might be parts of the POCD that either affect it or vice versa. So we felt rather than doing a change 6 months ago or 3 months ago, for example, and then doing another change in 3 months when about the time that the POCD comes out and is drafted, it would be better just to update both documents at the same time. So I do what Chris has said, I think would be a wonderful thing for the committee to review it and see what it is that you want to make, what changes you may want to make, so that we, at the time, down the road a piece, we can have something that this group is very, very comfortable with, and there's not much there. So I want the folks to know who may be watching and who may be here. We recognize that there are some things that we want to change in the document, and we just felt from a very practical standpoint, we were going to make those changes, knowing that they've already been presented by the committee. And if there are others that need to be made, then that can be taken care of. But that was a decision I made, and that should not be on the housing committee in terms of criticisms. So again, thank you for what you're doing, and I know we will get to where we need to get to, and appreciate your help in doing so.
Well, the next item on the agenda is talking about the midpoint update of the affordable housing plan. And actually, I felt that, talking to Justin, he thought this is probably, oh, I'm sorry. Let's go back. I'm gonna wind back. I skipped the minutes, the approval.
Just housekeeping.
Thank you for keeping me in line. As you know, I need that help sometimes.
Oh, good, okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the January meeting.
Discussion, Blue's found a typo,
In your name.
so I will
Typo in my
make
name.
that correction, with a correction to the Kathy, the spelling of Kathy's name.
I spelled my name wrong.
So, who made the motion and who made the second? You made the motion. You made the second, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, now we're on the midpoint update of the affordable housing plan. So, in talking with Justin a bit, we thought it is a really good time to do an update with the affordable housing plan, since we are getting current information from the POCD, and it's at a halfway point, because the next affordable housing plan is required to be updated every 5 years, so that would be 2027. And there's also some legislative changes that could be happening, some requirements that may come out of the session and maybe not, but I thought there were some good proposals that were coming out, and I sent out a report. I don't know if folks had a chance to look at that. I know I send out a lot of information.
Kathy, if you could send it out a week in advance, it's much easier for us to read. 74 pages, we got it yesterday. Send it out a week in advance. It's a 2-year-old report. Get it to us a week in advance. We have an opportunity to read it, and we can discuss it if we want to do that. But it was really challenging. I only read it because I had jury duty today for half a day.
Okay.
So fortunately,
happy it
I
worked
got
out for you.
something to do. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I would not have had a chance to open it.
Well, it was something I thought it was kind of it wasn't like something I wanted to spring on you. It was just an afterthought that, gee, maybe this would be good for a discussion. So I do get things out as quickly as I can, and I apologize if I don't get material out to you as quickly as I would like to.
If the committee is interested, we can have our office work. The way we've done it with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance at this point in time is we're using SharePoint files so that things can be added to the SharePoint and you can easily access them from wherever you are. It's up to the committee, but I'll offer that as
That would be
something
great.
for us to
No,
talk
'cause
about
I
and
have-
see if it'll work for you.
Yeah, I do have.
Just allows it to go quick. If, as soon as you're thinking about it, you can put it out there and it's there for anybody to see.
Yeah.
But believe me, there's We do, I've done the same thing because information has come in and it is a problem. And I've been on the other side of it, like you said, where it's like, come on, I just can't do this.
Yeah, I mean, it was a report I've been searching for a while. I know it came out in 2023, but it's a report from the Commission on Connecticut's future and development, and they talk about the affordable housing plans and do a critique of it. So they give a nice overview and they critique the plans. And it's really interesting reading, so if folks do have a chance to read it, they give some good examples of other plans, like for instance, I forgot what town, but they credited one affordable housing plan who actually put like pictures of people in town who would benefit from affordable housing, be it the senior who wants to downsize, be it the young person who wants to move back into town, be it the policeman or the teacher or the healthcare worker. So it's got some good recommendations, but the recommendations I kind of gleaned, and I thought it was interesting because they talk about like who should be on an affordable housing plan, and I realized I sent it out with some of my highlights, and I didn't. I mean, those are my highlights because.
I figured they were highlights.
Yeah, I know. You could probably tell there would have been Kathy Hunter highlights. But one of the highlights was talking about the important role of having somebody from planning and zoning be on housing committee. That was mentioned in a number of areas. And again, I just want to stress this is a bipartisan report from this commission that recommended, different configurations for what would be a good, affordable housing. It was actually a group that would actually do the update to the plan, and so they recommended certain positions to be on the plan, including people from the region who would like to move into town, who would not be able to, who can't move into town because there's not affordable housing options. So interesting read, but the three things that came out of that, which is now legislative, is in some proposals that may or may not go through, but I think we should do it anyway, is be more action oriented in how we want to actually get to create housing in Woodbridge. And the steps were to look at to first like determine what are your benchmarks. Now we determined benchmarks for a 20-year. We may want to distill those benchmarks in for over the next 5 years. What do we want to do over the next 5 years, 10 years? And then from the benchmarks, we want to locate where we could potentially build this housing. And I think this is something that Chris had suggested a couple meetings back. Getting a map and looking at where we could possibly build the housing and how many units where we could possibly build the housing. And then the next step is what zoning, how would zoning need to be amended in order to be able to do that? So it's like a 3-step process. And so that is what I, based on that report and based what's coming out in the legislative session, that is what I would like to see in our midpoint update, to start working on that. And fortunately we have Justin here that could help us with that process, because certainly I wouldn't have been totally comfortable just trying to do that without having some expertise from planning, but we have Justin here to help us with that. But with that, I know we did have a homework assignment from last meeting to go through the affordable housing plan, and I know everybody did that. And I'm sure we have recommendations. I know there's demographics and things that need to be updated. But if there's anything else that needs to be worked on, I'm just going to turn this over to everybody who did their homework. So,
Kathy, I'm a stickler for citations.
Mhm.
And there's a lot, and I'll say that vaguely. There's a lot of information in here which is quoted with no citation. That's part of the problem, is that we don't know where it came from. So is it a fact? Is it an opinion? We need to know that. So I'm looking on page 6.
Because we may not be able to do that. You weren't here when we did the affordable
understand
housing
that.
thing, yeah. And when I was looking through all of my stuff to see, to be reminded of where we were and why certain things are in there and so forth, I was reminded of how much of this document was simply given to us.
I
And
know.
it's standard for the other examples in the SCROG. So when we got hold of it, we spent weeks going through it and taking out things that were vague and taking out things that weren't clearly appropriate. We took out graphs, we corrected wording, and we got everything to the point, and I don't say we achieved this goal, but we got everything to the point where we thought that nothing was in there that was incorrect or that was going to, give people the wrong impression. That kind of basic information is standard for all of these housing plans from these
This is almost
guys.
exactly the same as the
And-
Orange Housing Plan.
Exactly.
I mean, there's so much of the language is word
It's
for word the same.
exactly the whole
So
structure,
this
everything.
consultant just basically does this for every town.
That's
And they
right.
just plop data in.
That's right.
But
So-
I don't know how accurate the data is.
Well,
So-
as we've said, hopefully we're going to get much more updated and accurate data. I remember them making, you should see my correspondence with some of the questions and the answers that we got back again. So I'm not going to defend a lot of the stuff that's in here because I've already questioned it. I think that the important things, we made sure that the things were critical to our proposals for how to approach achieving some affordable housing here in Woodbridge, that those things were well-founded and explained. But, we can certainly take out some things that have not proved to be
I think we need
really
to,
useful.
really evaluate the document and figure out, is this correct? Is it not correct? And if it's correct, how, where did it come from and how do we use it?
Well,
And that's a challenge.
extent that this document is supposed to be laying out the plan and making it clear to people based on the data and the facts and the community character remarks and so forth, why the goals we've established are important for Woodbridge, then clearly we have more work to do. And we've always known that. You don't get it done with just one document or just one meeting or just one conversation. And things are changing. I think the important things to check in this document and to update as quickly as possible are the things that are directly related to Woodbridge. And those are our goals, which stand up very well. The map, which, as you've already pointed out, we can improve our, you've already added to the examples of places in town where it would be conceivable that we could be building more housing. I think there are more that we can identify. I know that the CUPOP has been working on that too, but so far we haven't heard anything useful for them. But the map should be updated, the list should be updated, and then we can go from there to help people better understand what affordable housing is. But I think a lot of the work that this committee needs to be doing right now is outside of the plan. It's with the public. It's having
Definitely.
educational opportunities for people. It's maybe improving our papers and our communications about ADUs. It's about getting more information out there on subjects that are of interest to people. Sometimes I get a little impatient because, we know something's not going to work. And we keep hearing people say, well, why aren't you considering this or that? And we know it's not going to work based upon the whole picture, the economics, the staffing from the town, all that kind of stuff. But maybe we just have to lay it all out and explain why it wouldn't work. Just do that. So, and that lies outside the housing plan, or maybe it doesn't. If you look at some of these other plans, they actually go into more detail on some of these points.
Yeah, I think the number one strategy, I think it's listed first in our affordable housing plan is education.
In all of them.
And, that is with our POCD recommendations as well as education. And just in light of, the miseducation. We have to do a better job because, people are, people want to know. We've done the best we could, but I think we really need to get our, geared up on focusing on that and having educational processes. But that is our last agenda item. But in
But if you
terms.
think we should put more into the affordable housing plan, we could too. That would be one way that we updated it.
But what are you going to educate the people on?
Well, what they've asked us to, for example, what they've asked for more information on in the past and presently is, for example, ADUs.
Okay.
And one of the things that we could do that we haven't done is go down to the building department and talk to them about the 6 people who have constructed ADUs since this came out, to find out whether they had any problems. And if they did, is there anything we can do to make it easier? I mean, that's pretty straightforward.
But I'm
We could
thinking
do that.
education in how to get 9,000 people in this town to understand what we actually need to accomplish.
Yeah, you know what,
All
the
right? And
education,
this is not the document to do that.
Right.
This document
No.
needs to be changed and updated, so people can look at this document and not say, that's not right, that's not right. They need to look at this document and say, okay, now at the end of reading the document, I have a really good understanding of what we need to do.
right,
And that's not
and
happening.
Chris, again, we are working on that, and we made a decision to wait until we got the data from the POCD for us to be doing it as a separate, in
So
silo of
we're gonna
that.
do this after the POC's done,
When
just
we
so I
get,
understand.
yes, when we
Okay.
get the data from the POCD, then we're gonna take that data,
And rewrite this document.
well, I don't know if we, the committee, is gonna rewrite, but someone's gonna rewrite the document.
Not to belabor the point, but I am actually going to belabor the point. When we did this report, we realized a lot of the things you mentioned. And by the way, Kathy was not the chairman at that time, but our chairman was very good then as well. And what we did was we sort of punted on it and we put an executive summary on the first, I don't remember how many pages it was, 5, 6 pages, because there was, this was done by Scrog and we all had issues with it. We understood the basic principle of it, and the numbers may have been wrong, but the principles were right, and that's why we did that. But I agree, we're going to change things.
It's very different to be on a committee and spend a lot of time and effort and energy in understanding this than to be sitting in the audience or on TV. It's very different. We need to think like everybody else in town, and we need to figure out how do we educate them to know what we know. How do you educate me to know what you know? Because I've only been here for 8 months or 9 months. But that's how we have to think. We can't think, well, it's okay, it's good, it's okay. We can't think that way because people are not going to react to that.
Right.
They'll react to fact and proper education. That's what they're going to react to.
Yeah, Chris,
But as far
And
as
that's what they're gonna
correcting
react
things
to.
and
And
reworking
I-
things, we don't have we'll do it, but we don't really have much, we don't have very much in the way of resources as we're a
Hey,
committee.
Look, it's a challenge.
Sure.
I'm not saying it's easy,
Okay.
it's a challenge.
If I might, we do have resources.
Right.
And
Yes.
it's very important, it's something to be taken advantage of. If I could take a page out of the TPZ book, when they were doing their Scrivener changes for the TPZ zoning regulations, they basically reserved a block of time on each meeting to go through those changes, because it's very, very detailed and tedious. The Board of Selectmen has asked for an update. So we need to update, and I do feel it's this committee's responsibility to provide that update. So from that perspective, if we could put aside some time, even before the POCD is concerned, because there may be items in there that are specific, that aren't related to that, or that need to be changed for whatever, updated for whatever reason, that you may know without necessarily the POCD input, it would be helpful. Because it would be, the POCD has to be adopted in May. We won't see the draft until probably March. So another month before it's adopted in May. If we want this to conjoin with that, obviously you're gonna have to do something between now and then.
You wanted the affordable housing plan updated by May?
We would like as soon as possible, or whatever works for you. I'm gonna leave that up to you. I'm not
Yeah, I mean, I was-
inclined to give you a date, but you know, we wanna update this document.
No, I know
So-
we want to update this document, but
I'm confused because
We,
you
if
said
I,
we're
if I
gonna
could just
wait.
finish, Chris, if I could,
And I'm just saying, you said we're gonna wait till after POCD's done, and Mika's asking for this document to be redone before the POCD.
Well, I
No,
know.
I'm not saying
Okay.
before the POs. What I'm saying is there's things that should be able to be done in conjunction, like working in
Okay.
serial, working in parallel.
Okay.
If you're looking, because if you're looking for it, you are looking for Scrivener errors. If there's typos, if there's whatever it is, if you're looking at this document to the degree that you're indicating here in the short time that I've heard you talking at this meeting, then why not put some time aside so that everybody who's looking at it, whatever they find, they can bring up so that it can be,
well, maybe here's a suggestion,
Mhm.
because, you know, when the planning and zoning went through their rewrite of the zoning regulations over probably a 1.5 year period, it was first redlined by a consultant that changed it. So the planning and zoning just kind of reviewed the changes that were made by a consulting firm recommending changes. So what I am suggesting is that we could use some help in updating, because I'm not comfortable going through and making, statistical changes in the planning, in the affordable housing plan that a professional consultant did, and only to get lambasted in public, for not doing it right. So I would like a professional to have the information from the POCD and do that red line change as to how the information could be updated in the affordable housing plan. And I think, and then once that is done, then we can review the document in the same manner planning and zoning work. They had a professional do the first run on that. So that would be my suggestion.
I can give a little bit of context here. I think some background information might be useful, and then a little bit about some ideas that I might have moving forward. So for some of you will know this, some of you may not know this, the audience may not know this, whoever. These plans were required by the legislature under Section 830J of the state statutes. 830G is the one you hear about with the 10%. 830J is the one that requires these plans. The requirement came into place sort of right before COVID. COVID hit. They were due in 2022. Each town was given the option of applying for a single-time $15,000 grant to be able to put this together, which, as you guys know, to put a plan together like this is not a lot of money, which is why you're exactly right, Chris. A lot of these are cookie cutter. They're the same from town to town. Some demographic changes, some details changed, some goals changed, but if you look at the plan, you see throughout the state a lot of them look like each other. Housing is not one size fits all in the state. I think we know that. So now that we are several years out from this initial process, it's a great time to be able to start looking through this. How we move forward, and I think we have a couple of really good opportunities to move forward right now. One is the POCD. We're getting a lot of data from that needs to be done. It's updated demographic data from SLR, who we can trust for that data source. The second thing is, the first selectman mentioned a little early in the meeting, is on February 27th. 27th? Yeah. One of my colleagues, Dr. Don Poland, is going to be giving a presentation and having a discussion about some housing issues in Woodbridge. He's doing a lot of research on that as well. So we're going to have added information from that. So I guess what I'm saying is, over the course of the next several weeks and months, we're going to be getting a lot of updated data, which will help to inform some of this stuff. In terms of things like Scrivener errors, if there's any basic changes that need to be made, that can be done whenever. But something I might suggest is, like the first selectman said, having sort of a segment on the agenda every meeting, and be able to say, oh, did anybody see anything this month? And you'd say, oh, yeah, well, section 7 of page 22, we need to update this. My firm, Goldman & York, is here to help the town. We're limited with what we can do in terms of the hours that we have for the town, but anything that we can is helpful. And if you are able to give us a list of some things that you would like to see done, that's something we can work on.
Yeah, well, definitely the demographics would need to be updated, and that's what
Can we take things out just wholesale if they're not really working or helpful? Or are dated, like this, all the survey material that's in there, that would trim it down quite a lot, and so it
Yeah,
wouldn't be
oh,
quite
yeah.
so bulky. I'm not sure about the strategies at the end, that's kind of in-house stuff, because a lot of it I mean, none of us can implement it. It literally says it has to be done by the town. It's municipal or Board of Selectmen responsibility, so maybe we should just take that out, maybe not. Maybe we should leave it in there for that reason.
Yeah, I
But
think
it's a
we could
big
go-
chunk of it.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was,
Those actually do not amplify your voice, they just record your voice. So you actually
Really?
have to speak louder so they can hear. These are not amplifying mics, they're just
I can hear
recording
myself
mics.
so well.
Yeah, I know.
they're
We're
speakers.
talking louder than we're used to because
Chris, there are
people
some
need to hear.
speakers here that,
Yeah,
They do amplify it, just keep it low so it doesn't.
yeah, it's not that much.
Anyway, speaking as a technical writer, I would take the whole thing apart and put it back together again. I think it's badly written, it's too long, it's not accessible, it's not to the point. That's why we, as Lou said, that we are the only ones who have an executive summary in the front, because that was what that was for. It was to get to the point and tell people what they really needed to know without having to wade through another 95 pages worth of stuff. So we're really on the same page here, pardon the pun. But we could, if you want me to chop it up, I suppose I could take a couple of weeks out of my life and do it.
There's some examples of some really good plans that we
Yes,
saw.
yes.
Especially the one from Thai Consulting, that John did. It's very clear, it's just very.
Yeah, Tyler was good. Yeah, we were talking about this. Let me just mention that I chased down one of the pieces of information that was exposed by one of the speakers at the BOS meeting. Not for the first time, she mentioned her understanding that the town of Essex literally prohibits the use of publicly owned property for development for affordable housing. And I thought, wow, that's a really remarkable thing. So I called them up on the phone and talked to them. And of course, it isn't true. The reason it looks like that in their housing plan, or that it was possible to interpret that, was because of having to do with their GIS limitations. But anyway, it was very interesting, and I was talking to this guy, and he recommended that we look at the Woodbury Affordable Housing Plan because of the similarities between our towns and the issues that relate to them. And I did, and I recommend that you all look at that. That's a shorter one. It's better laid out on the page. Sure.
Thank you.
It's better laid out on the page. It's more accessible in that respect.
Now, the
I found it's a really
report
good
I
one.
sent you, the long
was
report
typed.
that you.
It's a state report.
Right, but they have appendixes, and they have all the reports in there. I believe that all the reports are hyperlinked.
I think there's links to them.
Right, yes, so you could just link in. But that
But
was all.
I can also put it in our, if you want me to, I can send it to
Was
you.
that the
It's
one
just-
that, from Thai Consulting?
that's also
Yeah.
from Thai.
No, they, I like that, I was trying to get them to do the report, but then they went to the SCROG, to do it, and they got RKG, and the rest is history, but, yeah, I think that's a good idea, instead of just trying to update something, just kind of start from scratch and just kind of make it more, shorter, more direct, and more strategic.
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of get over it because we put so much time into trying to make that document work well. And sometimes you just have to say, no, it's better if we make it shorter, more to the point, more specific.
So maybe next meeting, we'll just bring examples of different reports. And again, that report has hyperlinks into reports.
So let me just write this down. The next meeting, we're going to
Look at examples of reports and see what kind of format we want to follow. And then we could go and figure out how we could go section by section.
Yeah, we don't have to rewrite the whole thing. We just need to
Yeah.
make it.
But I think we could cut that down. I mean, there was a lot of like, but I think because it was a first report, there was a lot of existing conditions in there, and but I do think there's a way of just making that.
Well, if we leave it to the POCD to kind of supply that middle bit, and we just work on the first part, and then it comes up the question, what do we want to put in there that's not in there right now? We
Well,
can
I
talk
think
about
there's
what we're
three
taking
things
out,
that-
and then what do we want to put in?
There's three things that may be legislated that need to be in there.
Mhm.
And that is, coming up with numbers, coming up with where sites, and coming up with, zoning recommendations to be able to make that happen. Those are 3 areas. And I don't know if that's gonna be able to make it into the plan, but at least, to the extent we could do something like that.
Yeah, it should be helpful to make it a little more clear what the requirements or the expectations coming down from the state legislature are on us, so that we're expected to do certain things, and then people won't think that we made them up,
Right,
that
right. Well, particularly
that
the
we're just
numbers.
doing that because we want to.
Right, I mean, one of the things legislatively is that there's going to be a report that's gonna talk about the numbers,
What numbers?
the numbers of affordable housing units the Connecticut has to build. So they did break it down by region, so I believe our region, the New Haven region is around 25,000 units that need to be built.
Where's this, you have this report? Is this accessible for us to read?
It's, I think it was just released,
Can you share it with us so we can see it?
I remember seeing something similar, Kathy, so I'm sure there's something out there. So
yeah,
we'll see
it
what
was
we
in
can find.
it's in the news, Chris, so I'm
It's
not trying.
Not in the news that I see, because this is new to me.
Oh, okay,
So it's
well,
not in the
it's-
news that other people see.
All right.
So look, if there's a report, just share it. Just
Well,
share it.
I-
Also, I want to know, what are the plans that we're going to look at for the next meeting? Are we going to pick a few towns and look at them, or are we going to all, we should pick the same towns and all look at the same towns, so we're all on the same page, right?
Why don't we all look at, just as homework, look at some examples of plans and see what you think would work for Woodbridge, or we could come up, Mary and I have been looking at plans. It really depends how much work you want to put into it. I mean, if you want us to recommend to you what plans we think would work for Woodbridge, then we could do that.
Well, I think we should pick 3 towns that you think are reasonable plans, and everybody looks at those 3 towns.
So you
And then
want-
we come back to a meeting and say, this is what I liked about the town, and you might say, no, I like something differently, and I say, okay, I agree with you on that. Instead of, there's 120-something plans in that report. So if none of us look at the same plans, we're nowhere. Let's pick 3. Let's pick 3 or 4. And then,
We already
you
have
don't-
one, Woodbury, she said.
You don't actually have to kill yourself, because my experience is if you just look at something quickly and get a sense of it, then you look at what you've got. It's much easier to see what you like and what you don't
Look,
like.
if you want us to pick out a couple example of plans.
I want us as a committee to make that decision.
Okay,
What do we
then,
wanna do?
that's what I'm saying, then you
Yeah.
could
We
look
can
at
do
some
that.
plans and
Yeah.
decide what would work. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
Show you some, well,
Kathy,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. If I could, I can give, off the top of my head, I can give you examples of towns, affordable housing plans that were prepared by different consultants. So Woodbury was by Tyke. Bloomfield was by Goldman York. Towns of Franklin, Basra, they're smaller towns, but they were prepared by the Southeast COG. So again, these are not going to be a perfect fit for Woodbridge, but they will at least give you a sense of what's included, what you might want to include that's not included, things that they don't include that you don't feel need to be, just to get a sense. They're not going to be, you can't just carbon copy them, but they'll be at least, they can give you some ideas.
Good.
In the business, as it were, are there any that were held up as really good examples of what they really wanted to see?
There is some, yeah, and when you look at that report that I sent out,
That's where I'd expect it to be.
you know, and I apologize again, and send it out in time for people to really look at it. However, they did recommend some plans that stood out in terms of who did a good job. And they brought out some features, and you know, if folks could just read that report in preparation for next meeting, it brought out some features that were really good and different reports. One was the zoning, like they had like a zoning chart to show, you know, in what areas, you know, multifamily housing could be built, or where there's higher density housing could be built. So it just kind of provided some context as to how we can move forward. So yeah, that had some good recommendations, and they did like shout out some towns that had some good reports, and they had some interesting observations of towns that didn't have good reports. They didn't name them, but I guess some towns literally took their POCD, took their housing section, copied that, put a cover page on, and said that was their housing plan.
The record I saw was 4 pages.
Which one was?
There was a town that I won't name, but it was 4 pages.
Yeah,
And one of them just had a quote on it.
Yeah, some just said, our town doesn't want to do affordable housing, and that was their plan. So it's interesting reading. Okay, so we will, for next meeting, we'll look at some samples of plans, and then we'll start maybe, you know, doing section by section to see where we can make changes. But certainly the demographics is probably where I could use your help, Justin, to make sure, you know, we are, you know, because that's important to folks, and, you know.
And we'll have a lot of that data in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
You know, if we would like to have the current affordable housing plan in an editable version, I'm not sure there's much point to it, but if somebody would like to, probably the town has the capacity to convert that PDF.
We do?
I personally do not, but if you did.
I thought we had
We have old versions, but not the final one. At least I don't have the final one. The final draft, the approved draft, I don't have that.
Well, maybe we could just get it from RKG or Scrum.
It's easy enough to convert it if you've got
I don't even, you
that
know, I
PDF.
think, I have a funny feeling it's gonna need a major revamp anyway. It's just not gonna matter.
That's
Just-
my
just
sense.
knowing
I'm
how,
not just-
you know, updating plans sometimes is just more work to try to work from something
I
that
haven't
doesn't
done it
work.
many times, I can tell you, you're right.
So, okay. Is there any more
We'll
thoughts?
just reuse
on-
the pictures.
So for the next meeting, we're going to read this
Yes,
Commission on Connecticut's Future and Development that you sent to us yesterday. And then what else are we gonna look at? Anything else?
Well, you can look at a couple of,
which ones?
I'm gonna look up Bloomfield, I'd be interested
Okay.
in seeing
So
a
Woodbury
different
and
one.
Bloomfield, should we look up
Woodbury,
anything else, or
Bloomfield,
just so we
if you
pick
wanna
those
take a
two?
look at that.
All right.
Justin recommended, the
It's smaller towns, but a town like Basra, they have, theirs was created by the Southeast COG. So,
Southeast, okay.
Just to give you 3 different consultants who prepared it 3 different ways, you know. And then, of course, you've already seen the 4th way, which is what you have right now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, or?
But I think you'll like Woodbury at the beginning. It talks about the town, and I think that'll sound kind of familiar.
Yeah, Tyke did a great job with these.
Yeah, they did a great
Tyke is
job.
great. I like John. Did you ever meet John?
It was the guy I was talking to on the phone.
Oh, yeah, he's great.
He was on Jeopardy.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. He was following it for a bit. He does good stuff.
There are hyperlinks in this to these documents, correct? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, you'd have to go online to.
You gotta go onto the, you gotta go onto the website, okay, so it's in there.
Okay. All right, so we did touch upon this, educational opportunities for the community. That's, again, a big push on us. So luckily, we have our first educational opportunity scheduled for February 27th now.
And for the record, I would ordinarily let you know, we just decided this yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's fresh.
It's fresh off the press.
So-
Now, do we know, is this
One
gonna,
of the reasons I came.
is this gonna be virtual, or is it gonna be?
No, we hope to hold it in the gym. in the gym there.
Okay.
With getting enough of a crowd to have an interactive type of a session. It'll be a presentation to begin with, still being formed. As I said, we're working through exactly how it's gonna be formatted, but the main intent is to present information. And again, it won't be specific to any project. It'll be really, housing and then have plenty of time for a question and answer and some dialogue with the public, with our residents.
Now, is Dr. Poling going to tailor his presentation
Yes,
to Woodbridge?
to Woodbridge, Yep. yes.
Yeah, because I saw his presentation. It's just amazing. He's just so incredibly brilliant.
He's well credentialed in
Yeah.
terms of being able to do this type of thing, and we're fortunate that we're working with the group that he's with. So we're taking advantage of these guys.
It is being,
So
it is being taped, isn't it?
I expect it will be, and we can record in the gym, correct? That's not a problem?
For what day?
27th of February.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because I have
See, it's my
Mika,
next,
do you
that was
have a
one of my
time?
checked items. I've had.
2 other things already that very same night.
Mika, do you have a time for that?
Probably 6 to 8, Chris, is
6
what we were
p.m.
looking
to
at,
8
is that what we were
p.m.?
talking about?
It
Or-
said 6 to 8 or 6:30 to 8:30. I forget
Right.
which.
Wanted to do it in enough time for people to get there if they wanted to stop home.
Yeah.
So we may even do 6:30, 8:30, I think might be better.
Yeah, and that presentation will respond to people's concerns about the school population.
Correct.
And, and that's a lot of what we heard tonight was the school population, there's problems with overcrowded schools, but, again, affordable housing developments that have not been built yet have not impacted the school population. That's a process of planning for the school population.
It also provides me an opportunity to, talk to people about what the town is doing. One of the most important projects, or as far as I'm concerned, the most important project that we're engaged in right now is specifically the Beecher feasibility study to determine what we're going to do with the school. That's specifically being done to address some of the concerns that some of the parents mentioned in terms of the school being at capacity currently, so we have to grow. And that has nothing to do with any housing, because it's basically or any additional housing, I should say, any additional density housing, it's just what's happened here in town. So it has to be addressed, and we're getting closer and closer. Tri-board meeting is on the 12th, next week, a week from today, as a matter of fact. We have a tri-board meeting that will get presented with their first flush on what they're getting. So we're close to getting that resolved as well. But to me, that's the most important thing we have to decide, because at that point in time, we'll kind of identify for ourselves something we have to do anyway.
Yes.
This is just something we have to do, not related to any projects or anything along those lines. And once we get that done, we'll know what capacities we can gear toward and how we're going to gear toward them. But that committee has been doing a great job. They've been very, very thorough. And now they're at least ready to start presenting information. Tri-board meeting will be us, finance, us being the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and the Board of Education. We'll get together, consultants will present, and we'll start seeing what this is going to be.
Yeah, and I think that, it's just great to have a community dialogue, because one of the benefits of the informational session on the restricted housing was that people were able to engage in a dialogue, and it was just kind of interesting. They did present something that people didn't exactly buy into at the end of the day, but at least it gave a forum for people to talk about it and walk out with a viewpoint of what they thought and what they arrived at. So I think, any type of session like that is good to just have the constant community dialogue.
And I normally put out a news release, just my e-news release on a monthly basis, and I've been remiss lately because I've been concerned about reacting to specific things, and I've been wanting to understand what people are hearing and understanding. So I will be putting something out within the next week, just from my perspective, in terms of delivering some information. It's not going to be everything everybody wants, but it'll at least hopefully just just calm things down a little bit and help people understand that there's more to this than necessarily what they're hearing right now.
And so, Chris asked the question, what other educational opportunities? Well, there's plenty that we could talk about. I think we should be planning monthly educational opportunities. One I think is just something on just planning and zoning. People need to understand, what you just see the kind of disconnect here, tonight, but I think people need to understand the roles of planning and zoning. The new, zoning enabling act that came in that requires the town to do things, and people need to know that this is state laws and requirements, and not something the housing chair came up with. This is part of the education, so it'd probably be better off coming from an authority who could talk about that and answer questions and engage in dialogue. And I think that is really important, to have experts.
And I should mention, or if I could suggest, Sustainability's been doing a great job of having small library sessions.
That's all right.
And libraries are available for that, so pick out topics and have a regular series of those types of things. We have the facilities to do that, and
Yeah, that's what we talked about. Sustainability does a great job in doing like monthly calendars. So that's certainly our goal, is to have a monthly calendar, and so people can expect a topic of the month. So, maybe for March, we plan something on zoning. Maybe, I'd even like to maybe partner with sustainability to talk about the sustainability, CT certification process, because a lot of that has to do with preventing homelessness, creating affordable housing, because that all leads to a sustainable town.
Go ahead, sir.
No, please, you.
One suggestion, maybe with the big event the big event February 27th, might be good to sort of take a poll of what people are interested in learning about.
Mhm.
That way you can kind of, tier it in terms of.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe have a survey or something.
Yeah.
Another topic was just having the 411 on affordable housing, because you hear people ask the same question. So what is affordable housing, and what would somebody have to make, what, and just to correlate, like we're talking about affordable housing, someone who makes 80% AMI, we're talking about your policeman, your teacher, you're a health worker.
But you lost people when you said someone who makes 80% of AMI. They don't know what that is.
Exactly.
They don't know what that is.
Well, Chris, that's what I'm talking about.
I'm just saying,
Right.
we gotta go back
Right,
from the ground zero.
And I know
It's
that
really
Kathy has
important.
provided, because I've had that question.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Kathy's been providing some information.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was going to also take the opportunity, if I could, but I don't want to interrupt your conversations. It's more related to a TPZ type of thing. There was a lot of concern and a lot of consternation in regards to notifications as far as TPZ meetings are concerned. And we have updated our website so that any public hearing any public notice that goes out to the newspaper also is put into, we follow the same rules as we do with our agendas. So we post them. We have somewhere, if you go on the website, under government, you'll see legal notices. And in that section, anything that's posted, you'll find there. More importantly than only finding it, so there is another place you can go, but you can also sign up so that you can proactively, anytime there is a notice that comes in, you can be notified in your email box so that you know that it's happening. So that it's the extra step. We can't do just anything when it comes to TPZ notices. And, TPZ does what TPZ does, and they have to be consistent in terms of what they do, and they were consistent with what they do. But this is an added measure. We learned about it through some of our attorney actually told us another town that's doing it. So we've added that, and that's up there now. That's on the website. So if people want to go in there and do that, they can do that now.
So I also wanted to point out that, we haven't done it in a couple of years, but we did have a number of public hearings at the JCC, at the library, which is where I met Sally, and a couple of other locations. We actually did 2 at the library. And, we should do those again.
Yeah, no, we did, 2022, I think, you know, we did do a lot of public education, but then we got into doing the work of the committee, and we kind of, you know, pivoted from doing the educational community conversations to actually doing the work of, you know, trying to get this, come up with steps to get this done. But I think we're going to have to balance both of them now. But, you know, I think it's just going to be regular agenda topics that are going to be on our agenda to, you know, between the updating of the affordable housing plan and doing that, you know, strategically, step by step, and then it'll be, you know, what educational session we're going to have next month, and we should just plan to do that once a month.
Do you want to have a subgroup converse about that and come back with some proposals, or do you want to have all of us think about it individually and then talk about it at the next meeting?
I think we should just kind of think about what topics we should do, but certainly, well, once we get the topics, then we should, probably a subcommittee would be really good to work on that. That's my thought, but any other thoughts? Any other, like, educational topics you think we should be covering?
In general, and thank you for your suggestion. I thought it was a really good one. Well, I think we're also going to need some help getting the best people to come in and help us make this presentation, because we could give a very good, effective presentation on what is the housing committee and what do we know, and you can ask us questions, but that's it. Much better that we should have somebody from, you know.
Coleman York.
Yeah.
Coleman York or DOH.
Find out
you
what,
know.
I would like to have people focus regionally as much as possible
Well, I
to
was-
realize that our problems are,
Right.
you know, other people are dealing with the same thing and they have more ideas, and that would broaden the vision a little bit.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought that up, because another session I wanted, but I realized that the regional housing plan got tabled in November and it hasn't been able to move. Because our housing plan needs to be aligned with the regional housing plan. I think that's something else that's being recommended legislatively, but I think we should proactively do that anyway, because it's in our best interest, and we are you know, we're next to a major town, so we should be thinking regionally.
So with the regional
that wouldn't
housing
be my-
plan, is that from the state or is that from SCROG?
That's from SCROG.
SCROG, so why did they table it?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I can find out.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
I can ask.
I don't know.
Thank you.
I suspect it was politics, but I don't know.
But it's always good to hear from people who really know their stuff.
Yeah.
And we've had wonderful presentations here to the committee. Maybe some of those people would like to come back.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know a lot of people, and we do have our connection with DOH. We have, you know, Ben Lovejoy, who is part of SCROG, who is there for, provide assistance. So he could, you know, we could bounce ideas off. And certainly the SCROG Housing Task Force is there to provide resources as well. And everybody, and that's another recommendation, if anybody's interested in going to these meetings, I try to get them notices out to people as soon as I get them. But they're good, you know, it's good to have these regional conversations, and they do put excellent presentations on. And I try to bring that back to the meeting to report on it. I haven't been able to go lately. And I don't know, I know, Mika, you went to the last community, was the SCROG meeting on regional community
Oh, yes, in North Branford. I'm sorry,
conservation. Yeah.
in North
I didn't
Haven.
I couldn't go to that, but I don't know if there was anything interesting to talk about, or?
I don't think there was anything that we haven't necessarily talked about. It was a great session for sharing ideas and contacts, really. And I know there's a couple of folks who, for example, I had a lot of difficulty trying to find a report on school-aged children in developments. That was done. It's a very significant report, and everybody always refers to it. But I'll be darned if I look, you know, every time I looked online, I just couldn't find it. So as a result, I was able to contact couple of us got together from that meeting, and we were able to get, it's the Rutgers report. That, I mean.
Oh, that was online. We had that on our website.
Yeah,
Well,
we had the.
yeah, go ahead, take a look.
Wasn't there another one from?
Well,
It
I think Allison cleaned up our website,
Yeah.
but
She cleaned it
yeah,
up too much.
So the original report and there was also a 2018 update to that report, all related to New Jersey primarily, but nonetheless, I was able to get some of the statistics that I went, and I was also able to get to some other folks, so it was great in terms of additional resources, finding additional means by which to get different information, so.
Yeah, we
so
do
very
have-
useful.
Yeah, I mean, and also on the website, we did put like the Scribe resources, and they have a whole bunch of resources on there.
I know exactly what topic we should start with. I
What's that?
wish. We got to find just the right person. The relationship between affordable housing and conservation.
Oh, yeah.
We went to that whole conference, and it was all kumbaya, and then things have kind of fallen apart. since that time.
Yeah, there is, and I was supposed to put that out, that was on my to-do list. The last Partnership for Strong Communities Housing Conference, they did have a session on affordable housing and conservation, and they featured Jocelyn Ayers, who used to be head of the SCROG in that area in Litchfield, and she now is working for the Housing Opportunity or Housing Center or something for that area. But anyway, there is great presentation, and they have a really good video that I wanted to have posted, because it's a video about, 8 minutes, that talks about how housing and conservation, work together.
That's what that conference was about.
Yeah, so I will, folks, if I don't, I was going to do that last time. If I don't do it, just let me know I didn't do what I should have done. I'm human, I have a day job, and it gets busy. So.
I can make a phone call if you want me to.
No, I haven't. I mean, you just look it up. You can look it up. Partnership for Strong Communities Housing Conference 2024, and they bring up all the YouTubes for the conference, and you'll see affordable housing and conservation, and you could take that YouTube and watch it.
Well, people have questions about that, and it would be great if they had a chance to
I
ask
think
the
I
questions.
would like to get Jocelyn here to present. I think having the housing committee and conservation, come together and watch it would be interesting.
And talk to her.
But it might be. I think we just need to do it. I mean, it was interesting because I was watching a conservation meeting, and one of the members was just like, well, they had all this question about affordability, and we don't understand, and one of the members said, why don't we just have the housing committee come and give a presentation, and we could talk to them. And I said, that's a great idea, and they were like, no, they shut it down. That's not their area. I understand their conservation, but if there's any misunderstanding, we should be able to talk things out. So. I think I'll get Allison to put that YouTube up, and then I'll send an email to conservation and say, hey, why don't you watch this?
But I think for a public meeting.
Yes,
for a public
absolutely
meeting.
for a public meeting,
That
and
would
that
be
will be
great.
one of our next sessions is to do the conservation of affordable housing, how we could work together.
I think that's really central to what's going on right now.
Yeah.
ADUs are all very well, but that's
No.
really key.
No, it's the idea that conservation and affordable housing is not mutually exclusive. I mean, the best housing designs incorporates open space. That's what makes it so. That's what makes the housing development so so beautiful, is when you incorporate the open space element in there, and trails and pathways, and I mean, we're not against that. So that is.
Well,
we're gonna be busy.
even I have questions I'd like to ask.
Is there any? I know I've been talking a lot, and I said I wasn't gonna talk this meeting that much, but.
So our next meeting, we're going to look at 3 towns' affordable housing plans and review this document and discuss our affordable housing plan, start to discuss our affordable housing plan after having reviewed those three towns in this document.
Yeah, that sounds-
Good?
Is that enough homework for you?
That's plenty. It's more than enough.
Lots of homework.
We've got 6 months worth of work to do.
In 1
And
week.
we haven't, and then we'll just get to the starting point.
Yeah.
This is a
we
lot.
get
This
it
is a lot. This is not easy. It's not easy. This is a really complicated, it's a very complex
complicated
topic.
subject.
And it's gonna take a lot of work to be able to educate people to understand the nuances of all of this. The pros and cons, how do you mesh different groups together? How do you mesh conservation and housing? It's a very difficult topic. So we gotta work on that.
Complicated.
Okay. Any other
Motion to adjourn?
questions?
I
Well,
gotta go have dinner. It's 9:07. I gotta go have dinner.
I just want to make one comment. Well, I want to just thank Kathy. I think her efforts have been valuable. I don't think there's anyone in town who has her experience in terms of housing. And I think, we should support her, and, because she's volunteering her time, we shouldn't try to beat her down. We should all work together and try to get to a consensus. Instead of critiquing, we should add value, and I think that's what's more important for us to get to the point where we all want to get to. We're not going to agree on everything, but at least we'll get to a point where there's full understanding of what we're trying to accomplish, or what this group's trying to accomplish as a committee.
thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right.
We have a motion on the floor to adjourn.
Second.
I can't make a motion.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.